80scomics.com. What's the only thing better than G.I. Joe? More G.I. Joe. It's the G.I. Joe Yearbook #1 from 1985. Everything you need to know about America's favorite heroes, but we're afraid to ask because Snake Eyes will stab you. It's all right here. And my favorite part of the G.I. Joe Yearbook is the cover. I love the cover. Look how cool that is. There's Ace rocking out in the Sky Striker. Forget what that thing's called, but I used to have that. I didn't have the Sky Striker, but I had that thing. The bike was fun. I mean, any bike with a minigun is a good bike. And here we get a really nice picture of the Joes. Snake Eyes, Wild Bill, Scarlet, Roadblock. There's Mutt. And Deep Six. You don't get to see Deep Six enough. On the back, got the Cobra Rattler and a really nice layout with the Cobras. Actually, this is my favorite drawing of Destro ever. Destro normally looks kind of goofy. Like he looks like kind of a douchebag. Destro looks pretty cool there, probably because he's in the presence of the Baroness, who looks great. Also, Storm Shadow looks pretty kick-ass. Firefly, one of my favorites. Really nice cover. This one's been banged up over the years. Now, the G.I. Joe yearbook's pretty big. All of the yearbooks are pretty big. There's 4 of them, I think. I have all 4. Here's the table of contents. We get a reprinting of the first issue of G.I. Joe, one of many reprintings of the first issue of G.I. Joe. Lady Doomsday, a good issue. Also, the saga continues. A little recap. The Pit, from the top secret files of G.I. Joe profiles, and G.I. Joe on television. So if you've never read the first issue, this is a good way to dive into it. This book does not cost as much as the first issue, as an actual copy of the first issue. And there's my favorite picture in it. Rock and roll, jumping over cobras, dodging machine gun fire while firing a machine gun from the motorcycle. Get back, Cobra. Rock and roll is here to stay. Writing like that, you bet it is. And here's a recap of some of the other, I always love that thing. Here's a recap of some of the other G.I. Joe issues. If you're not exhausted after all of that G.I. Joe action, you can still subscribe to G.I. Joe yesterday, like 30-some years ago. And here are the secret code files or whatever. There's some Cobra Commander and my man Rock and Roll. You know I love rock and roll. Duke, Recondo, Firefly. Everyone loves Storm Shadow. Roadblock and Ripcord. There's the Baroness, Wild Weasel, and Steeler. I mentioned him just a few episodes ago. Steeler's from Pittsburgh. Get it? His name's Steeler. And actually, they did their research because Steeler's got the best Yinzer name ever. Ralph Pulaski. Like, that's a total Pittsburgh name. Young, reckless, often clashes with authority figures, loves I See Light. Here's G.I. Joe on television. Now, the G.I. Joe cartoons were pretty good. They had a great theme song. But it's one of these cases where the comic books are really just much better. They were better written, the artwork is better, more consistent in the comic books. But the TV show was a lot of fun. It hasn't aged as well as Transformers, I don't think. Or Galaxy Rangers, another one of my favorites, but still a good cartoon. And this is basically just one giant advertisement for the cartoon. And a memo from Hawk. And what do you do with memos? You ignore them. Because look at the cover. There's Spirit. Classic Scarlet can accessorize with ninja stars and look great. Also, she throws it at Cobra Commander because he's an asshole and frankly, he deserves it. I missed the G.I. Joe Command Center blueprint, but you know what we didn't miss was advertisements. There aren't any. Which for an 80s comic book is maybe kind of sad because the ads are often the best part of the book. But in this one, we just get a whole lot of G.I. Joe. It's the G.I. Joe Yearbook. #1 cost $1.50 back in the day, which was a lot for a comic. But look how big this is. This is huge. And just a wonderful cover design. A lot of fun. Good book and a great way to get issue #1. Here on 80scomics.com.